Commander Vex Nellar adjusted his 3 primary visual sensors and let out what humans would recognize as a snort of disgust. The massive viewport of his flagship, the Dominator's Fist, displayed the pitiful sight before them, a single human vessel, floating like a lost insect in the vastness of space. That's it? First Officer Krixmodo clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among the Zinthari. That's the famous human warship we've been hearing whispers about across 17 star systems. The human ship looked absolutely ridiculous, where Zinthari vessels were sleek, angular death machines bristling with plasma cannons and torpedo tubes. This thing resembled a cargo hauler that had gotten into a fight with a scrapyard and lost badly. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals welded together with what appeared to be the engineering equivalent of hope and prayer. Intelligence reports call it the Makeshift, Communications Officer Trilvos announced, his voice dripping with amusement. Apparently the humans think creativity and naming extends to their military vessels. Vex Nellar's secondary arms crossed behind his back as he studied the pathetic craft. Scan it. I want to know exactly how easy this is going to be. The bridge fell silent, except for the gentle hum of scanning equipment. Then, sensor operator Quinn Drex looked up with confusion written across his scaled features. Sir, this is odd. Define odd, Quinn Drex. Are we looking at some sort of elaborate joke? The ship registers as having minimal offensive capabilities. 2 small railgun turrets, basic shielding, standard fusion reactor, nothing that should concern a vessel of our class. Quinn Drex paused, his tail twitching nervously. But sir, there's something else. Spit it out. There's a massive energy signature coming from the ship's core. Bigger than our main reactor. Much bigger, Krixmodo laughed. A sound like breaking glass. They probably overclocked their engines. Typical human engineering. All power, no finesse. They'll blow themselves up before we get the chance. Vex Nellar wasn't laughing. In his 200 cycles of military service, he'd learned that anomalies usually meant trouble. Still, what could one pathetic human ship do against the pride of the Zinthari Imperial Navy? Open a channel, he commanded. The main screen flickered, revealing the bridge of the human vessel. If the outside of their ship was unimpressive, the inside was downright embarrassing. Exposed wiring ran along the walls like mechanical veins. Jury-rigged control panels sparked occasionally, and was that duct tape holding together what appeared to be a primary console? A human female stepped into view. She was tall with short-cropped auburn hair and the kind of confident smile that immediately made Vex Nellar suspicious. Her uniform looked like it had been assembled from spare parts, much like her ship. Well, hello there, she said, her voice carrying an odd cheerfulness that seemed completely inappropriate for the situation. I'm Captain Maria Santos of the Terran Federation vessel Makeshift. And you would be? I am Commander Vex Nellar of the Zinthari Imperial Navy, he replied, drawing himself up to his full impressive height. You are trespassing in Zinthari space, human. Captain Santos tilted her head, that infuriating smile never wavering. Oh, are we? Sorry about that. Navigation's been a bit wonky since we took some hits at Proxima. But hey, since we're here, maybe we can chat. Chat? Vex Nellar's tertiary eyes narrowed. This human was either completely insane or playing some sort of game. There will be no chatting. You will surrender immediately, and we will decide whether to destroy you quickly or slowly. Destroy us? Santos looked genuinely surprised. With what exactly? The question was so absurd that Krixmodo burst into laughter again. With what? Human, we are the Z's Dominator's Fist. We carry enough firepower to glass a small moon. You are flying what appears to be held together with wishful thinking. Oh, this old thing? Santos patted what looked like a control panel made from salvaged civilian electronics. Yeah, she's not much to look at. But you know what they say about judging books by their covers. We do not have that saying. Vex Nellar stated flatly. Well, you should. It's a good one. Santos' smile widened. Tell you what, Commander. How about a little demonstration, just to keep things interesting? A demonstration of what? Your ship's ability to fall apart without our assistance? Something like that. Santos turned away from the screen and called out to her crew, "Jake, power up the main gun." From somewhere off-screen, a male voice responded with what sounded suspiciously like suppressed laughter. "Aye, Captain." Spooling up now. Vex Nalar felt a chill run down his spine as his sensor officer suddenly sat up straighter. "Sir, that energy signature is spiking rapidly." "How rapidly?" "Bay, it's off the charts, sir. I've never seen readings like this." On the screen, Captain Santos was consulting what appeared to be a tablet held together with more of that mysterious human adhesive tape. "Jake, what's our power level at?" 75%, and climbing, Captain." "Should we go to full power?" "Nah. This should be plenty for a demonstration." Santos looked back at the screen, and for just a moment, Vex Nalar caught something in her eyes that made his blood run cold. It wasn't fear or desperation, it was anticipation. "You see, Commander," Santos continued conversationally, "the thing about human engineering is that we don't always build things to look pretty. Sometimes we build them to work. And sometimes, when we're really motivated, we build them to work very, very well. Sir." Quinn Drex's voice was getting higher. "That energy signature is now reading at 3 times our maximum reactor output." "Impossible." Crix Moto scoffed. "Their ship is a quarter our size." "Oh, size isn't everything," Santos said sweetly. "For instance, our main gun might not look like much, but it's got a few tricks up its sleeve." "Your main gun?" Vex Nalar studied the human ship again. "I see no main gun." "That's because you're looking for the wrong thing." Santos' finger moved to what looked suspiciously like a big red button covered by a clear safety cover. "You're looking for something that looks like a gun. But humans, well, we think outside the box, sir." "I'm detecting massive gravitational fluctuations around their vessel," sensor operator Quinn Drex reported, his voice now openly panicked. "Whatever they're doing, it's affecting space-time itself." "Affecting what?" Vex Nalar's 4 hearts began beating in an increasingly irregular pattern. Captain Santos flipped up the safety cover with her thumb. "See? The thing about humans is that we've always been good at taking things that weren't meant to be weapons and turning them into weapons. Rocks become clubs. Clubs become spears. Spears become guns. And when you give us access to technology that can manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe," she shrugged. "Well, we get creative, sir. Recommend immediate evasive action." Tactical Officer Bren Koss called out, "Whatever they're preparing to do, we don't want to be in front of it." "Evasive action?" Vex Nalar's pride wouldn't let him retreat from a single human ship, no matter how strange their readings. "From one pathetic vessel?" "Jake, target that nice big ship in front of us," Santos called out cheerfully. "Target locked, Captain." "Shall I dial it down to non-lethal?" "Nah. Let's give them the full experience." "Set it to, oh, let's say 50% power. Don't want to waste ammunition." 50%. "Aye, Captain." Vex Nalar was about to demand an explanation when every alarm on his bridge began screaming at once. The lighting shifted to emergency red, and his tactical display lit up like a festival fireworks show. "Sir, massive energy buildup detected. Whatever they're about to fire." "It's," Quinn Drex's voice cracked. "Sir, the readings don't make sense. According to this, they're about to fire something with the energy output of a small star." "That's impossible," Crix Moto repeated, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. "You know," Captain Santos said thoughtfully, "that's probably the most common last words in the galaxy. That's impossible. Right up there with what could go wrong, and how hard could it be?" "Sir, I strongly recommend we withdraw immediately," Tactical Officer Bren Koss urged. "We can call for reinforcements and we do not withdraw from humans." Vex Nalar roared, his pride finally overriding his increasingly urgent survival instincts. "That fire all weapons. Destroy that ship now." The Dominator's fist unleashed everything it had. Plasma cannons carved brilliant lines of destruction through space. Torpedo spreads created expanding spheres of annihilation. Energy beams capable of slicing through battle cruiser armor lanced toward the human vessel and bounced off harmlessly. Sir, their shields just absorbed everything we threw at them, Weapons Officer Zan Kelp reported in disbelief. Our most powerful weapons didn't even cause fluctuations in their defensive grid. Captain Santos watched the light show with apparent enjoyment. Pretty fireworks, Commander. Our turn now. She looked down at her improvised control panel. Jake, you ready? Ready and waiting, Captain. What are your targeting solutions? Got a beautiful lock on their primary reactor, their weapons systems, and their bridge. Should I go for all three? Nah. Just take out their weapons and engines. We leave life support intact. We're not monsters. Santos looked back at the screen, and her smile had shifted into something that made Vex Nalar's exoskeleton try to crawl off his body and hide somewhere safer. See you on the other side, Commander. She pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to hiccup. The Makeshift didn't fire in any conventional sense. There was no visible beam, no projectile, no missile. Instead, reality around the human ship briefly folded in on itself, and when it unfolded again, the Dominator's fist was falling apart, not exploding. Not burning, simply coming apart, as if every bolt, weld, and molecular bond that held the massive warship together had suddenly decided to call it quits. Sir, all weapons offline, came a stunned report. Engines dead. Dead. Main reactor, sir. The main reactor is shutting down on its own. All containment fields are stable, but the fusion process is just stopping. Vex Nalar stared at the tactical display in absolute horror. His mighty warship, the pride of the Imperial Navy, capable of reducing planets to rubble, that had been completely disabled by what appeared to be a single shot from a ship that looked like it belonged in a scrapyard. What did you do? He whispered. Captain Santos' voice came through the speakers, still cheerful, still infuriatingly casual. Oh, that was our little field disruptor. Sends out a pulse that temporarily interrupts the strong nuclear force in a targeted area. Very precisely targeted. I should add, it'll only affect artificial structures within its range. Won't hurt people. Won't affect natural materials. Just makes technology take a little nap. The strong nuclear force. Quinn Drex looked up from his console with the expression of someone whose understanding of the universe had just been gently but firmly relocated. But that's impossible. If you could disrupt the strong nuclear force, you could unmake any artificial structure by convincing its atoms they don't actually want to stick together anymore. Santos finished helpfully. Yeah, that's about the size of it, but the energy requirements alone would require harnessing the output of an entire star. Santos nodded. That's why most species don't bother trying. Too much work, too expensive, too dangerous. Fortunately, humans have never let those considerations stop us from doing anything. Vex Nalar finally found his voice. How? How what, Commander? How did you build such a weapon? How did you power it? How is any of this possible? Santos' laugh was genuinely warm. Oh, Commander, you're asking the wrong questions. The question isn't how we built it. The question is why. Why? Because someone told us it was impossible. The silence on the bridge of the Dominator's fist stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the faces of the Zenthari crew as they stared at their dead control panels. Outside the viewport, the human ship Makeshift continued floating there, looking exactly as ramshackle and pathetic as before, which somehow made everything infinitely worse. Because someone told us it was impossible, Captain Santos had said, and those words echoed in Commander Vex Nalar's mind like a death knell. Sir, Communications Officer Trelvos whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of failing life support systems. What are your orders? Vex Nalar's mandibles clicked nervously. Orders? What orders could he possibly give? His weapons were offline, his engines dead, and apparently the humans possessed technology that could unmake matter itself at the subatomic level. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was a lesson in humility, delivered at relativistic speeds. The communication channel crackled back to life, and Captain Santos reappeared on their main screen. Behind her, The human crew was going about their business with the casual efficiency of people who had just performed a routine maintenance check, rather than completely disabled a vessel 50 times their size. "So, Commander," Santos said, settling into what appeared to be a chair cobbled together from spare parts and optimism, "I'm guessing you have some questions." "Questions?" Crixmodo found his voice first, though it came out as more of a squeak than his usual authoritative tone. "You just violated the fundamental laws of physics and you think we have questions? Well, technically we didn't violate anything. We just found a loophole." Santos gestured vaguely at her jury-rigged bridge. "Physics is more like guidelines than actual rules, you know. There's always another way to skin a cat." "We do not understand this reference to feline dermis removal," Vex Nalar stated automatically, then immediately regretted speaking at all. "Right, alien cultural differences. Let me put it this way. When the universe says you can't do something, humans hear that as a personal challenge." Sensor operator Quinn Drex looked up from his console with the expression of someone who had just watched their religion, their science, and their basic understanding of reality get into a fistfight and lose spectacularly. But the energy requirements. Even if you could harness a star's output, the containment systems alone would require materials that don't exist and engineering principles that haven't been invented yet. Santos nodded sympathetically. "Yeah, that's what our scientists said too, right up until our engineers told them to hold their beer and watch this." "Hold their beer?" Tactical Officer Bren Koss repeated weakly. Human idiom. Roughly translates to observe while I attempt something spectacularly inadvisable that will either work brilliantly or kill us all horribly. Santos paused thoughtfully. "Come to think of it, that pretty much sums up our entire approach to technology." From somewhere off-screen, the voice of Jake called out cheerfully, "Captain, we're getting some interesting readings from their ship. Looks like their crew is having some sort of existential crisis. Can you blame them?" Santos replied, "We just turned their dreadnought into an expensive piece of space junk, using what looks like a garbage scow with delusions of grandeur. Actually, Captain, I prefer to think of us as a garbage scow with a really, really big gun." "Fair point, Jake." Santos turned back to face the screen. "Commander, you're looking a bit pale. Well, paler than usual for your species. Are you feeling all right?" Vex Nalar realized his mouth had been hanging open for the past several minutes. He closed it with an audible snap. "You're insane. Your entire species is clinically insane." "Oh, absolutely," Santos agreed cheerfully. "It's one of our better qualities. Sanity is overrated anyway. Sane species don't strap themselves to controlled explosions and hurl themselves into the void. Sane species don't look at the impossible and think, 'Hold my beer.' Sane species don't survive first contact with a hostile universe, but how?" Quinn Drex was now openly pleading. "How do you power such a weapon?" Santos glanced over her shoulder. "Jake, want to field this one?" "Sure thing, Captain." A young human male stepped into view, wearing coveralls that had seen better decades and sporting a grin that suggested he was having the time of his life. "See, the thing about stellar-level energy output is that you don't actually need to harness a whole star. You just need to convince a very small piece of space-time that it's temporarily experiencing stellar-level gravitational compression." "That's impossible," Crixmodo said reflexively. Then immediately looked like he wanted to bite his tongue off. "There's that word again," Santos laughed. "Jake, show them the math." Jake held up what appeared to be a napkin covered in equations. Basic applied space-time topology with a dash of quantum mechanics and a healthy disregard for common sense. "The universe is surprisingly flexible if you know where to poke it." "You calculated stellar-level energy manipulation on a napkin?" Vex Nalar's voice had climbed several octaves. "That's well, it was a really big napkin," Jake said defensively, "and I had to use both sides." "This is not possible," Sensor Operator Quinn Drex whispered, staring at his readings. "None of this is possible." "You keep using that word," Santos observed. "I do not think it means what you think it means." "Did you just quote ancient human entertainment media at us?" Communications Officer Trellvoss asked incredulously. "Maybe. The point stands, though. You're defining possible based on what your species has achieved. But just because you haven't figured out how to do something doesn't mean it can't be done. Vex Nellar felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. It was an uncomfortable feeling, like realizing you've been walking around with your underwear on backwards your entire life. How long have humans possessed this technology? Oh, about 6 months, Santos said casually. The bridge fell silent, except for the sound of several Xanthari jaws hitting the deck. 6 months? Vex Nellar squeaked. Yeah, we fast-tracked the development process after the hegemony decided to make threatening noises about human colonies. Amazing how motivating impending genocide can be for technological advancement. The hegemony threatened you? Krixmoto's tertiary eyes widened. The galactic hegemony controls half the known galaxy. They have fleets that could sterilize entire systems. Santos corrected gently. Past tense, what do you mean? Had. Well, after they declared war on humanity and sent their grand fleet to show us what for, we kind of had to demonstrate that threatening human colonies was a poor life choice. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees. What did you do? Nothing too dramatic. We just convinced their entire fleet that existing in the same configuration was optional. Santos' smile turned predatory. Turns out that when you can disrupt the strong nuclear force at range, fleet becomes rapidly expanding cloud of component atoms pretty quickly. You destroyed the hegemony Grand Fleet? Vex Nellar's voice was barely a whisper. Destroyed is such an ugly word. We disassembled them, very cleanly, very efficiently. No radiation, no debris field, no environmental contamination. Just a lot of very surprised atoms wondering where their electrons went. How many ships? 12,437 vessels of various classes, Jake called out helpfully. Though to be fair, Captain, we did give them a chance to surrender first. We did indeed. Very sporting of us, I thought. Santos nodded approvingly. Unfortunately, they chose to respond by firing everything they had at our diplomatic vessel. Then what happened to your diplomatic vessel? Oh, it was fine. Good shields, you know, but it was terribly rude of them. So we decided to make a point about proper diplomatic etiquette. Vex Nellar's worldview crumbled a little more. The galactic hegemony had been the dominant military power in this region of space for over 3,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of species, subjugated entire sectors, and built an empire that spanned multiple star systems. And apparently humans had erased their entire grand fleet in a single engagement. The other galactic powers, he managed to croak. What was their response? Oh, they've been very polite, Santos said cheerfully. Amazing how respectful everyone becomes when you demonstrate that you can uninvent their technology at will. The Altarian Republic sent us a fruit basket. The Vegan Confederacy offered us a trade agreement. Even the notorious pirate king Scar Vex sent us a nice note congratulating us on our creative approach to conflict resolution. And the Xanthari Empire? Vex Nellar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Well, your government has been remarkably quiet since news of the hegemony incident got out, which is why we were so surprised when you decided to threaten us just now. Santos tilted her head curiously. Did High Command not get the memo about not picking fights with humans? Vex Nellar realized he had no good answer. His orders had been to patrol this sector and eliminate any human vessels encountered. Those orders had seemed perfectly reasonable 6 hours ago. Now they seemed like elaborate suicide instructions. Captain, Jake called out from his position at what appeared to be a control console made from salvaged starship parts and creative welding. I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching our position. Looks like Xanthari reinforcements. How many? A lot. I count at least 40 ships, including several dreadnoughts and what appears to be a battle station. Santos whistled appreciatively. 40 ships, Commander? You really shouldn't have. That's incredibly flattering. I didn't call for reinforcements, Vex Nellar protested weakly. No, but someone did. And now we have a whole fleet of your people about to make the same mistake you just did. Santos stood up and stretched, joints popping audibly. Jake, what's our power level at? Back up to 90%, Captain. We can easily handle 40 ships if needed. Good. But let's try the diplomatic approach first. Santos turned back to the screen. Commander, I'm going to need you to do me a favor. What kind of favor? I need you to contact your reinforcements and explain the situation. Tell them that attacking us would be a very poor career move. They won't believe me. Then you'd better be very convincing. Because the alternative is that we demonstrate our capabilities on a rather larger scale, and I'd really prefer not to have to explain to our diplomats why we accidentally disassembled another fleet. The reinforcement fleet dropped out of hyperspace in a classic Xanthari battle formation, their weapons already charging for combat. Vexnalar frantically opened a channel to the flagship, a massive battle station called the Worldbreaker. Admiral Kos Ventar, this is Commander Vexnalar. Do not, under any circumstances, engage the human vessel. Commander? Your ship appears to be disabled. Are you under duress? Sir, the humans possess weapons technology beyond our understanding. They disabled our entire ship with a single shot. Please, sir, do not engage them. There was a pause. Commander, are you telling me that a single human ship disabled the Dominator's fist? Yes, sir. They can disrupt the strong nuclear force itself. They can unmake matter at the subatomic level. Sir, they destroyed the entire Hegemony Grand Fleet. The Hegemony Grand Fleet was destroyed by a natural phenomenon, some sort of stellar collapse. No, sir. It was the humans. Another pause, longer this time. Commander, you will maintain your position while we deal with this situation. The channel closed. Vexnalar turned to Captain Santos with desperation in his eyes. They're going to attack. Admiral Kos Ventar is ambitious. He sees this as an opportunity for glory. Well, Santos sighed. We tried diplomacy. Jake, target their weapons and engines only. Let's not make this any messier than it has to be. Aye, Captain. Spooling up the main gun, the Xanthari fleet opened fire with everything they had. The space around the Makeshift filled with enough destructive energy to sterilize a small planet. When the light show finally ended, the human ship sat completely unharmed in the middle of a sphere of dissipating plasma. Their turn, Santos said quietly. She pressed the button again. This time, Vexnalar was watching when reality hiccuped. For just an instant, he could see the fundamental structure of space-time bend around the human weapon. It was like watching the universe blink. When it was over, 40 Xanthari warships floated powerless in space, their weapons offline, their engines dead, with their crews staring at control panels that had simply forgotten how to work. Jake, open a channel to the entire fleet. Channel open, Captain. Santos stood up and smoothed down her improvised uniform. When she spoke, her voice carried across 40 ships and reached the ears of over 200,000 Xanthari military personnel. Attention, Xanthari fleet. This is Captain Maria Santos of the Terran Federation. Your weapons and engines have been temporarily disabled. Your life support systems are unaffected, and you are in no immediate danger. However, I want to make something very clear. She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity did not ask for this conflict. We did not seek war with your empire or any other galactic power. We simply want to be left alone to pursue our own path among the stars. But if you insist on threatening us, if you insist on treating us as inferior beings to be conquered or destroyed, then you will learn what happens when you underestimate a species that thinks impossible is just another word for challenge accepted. Santos gestured to Jake, who held up another napkin covered in equations. We have weapons that can unmake matter itself. We have defenses that treat your most powerful attacks as gentle breezes. We have technology that your scientists will spend the next 1,000 years trying to understand. And we developed all of this in less than a year, because someone made the mistake of threatening our families. The captain's voice grew colder. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to repair your ships using the backup systems we've left functional. You're going to return to Xanthari space, and you're going to inform your high command that humanity is not to be trifled with. We don't want war. But if war is what you bring us, then war is what you'll get. And trust me when I say that you really don't want to find out what we're capable of when we stop holding back. Santos sat back down in her improvised captain's chair. This concludes today's lesson in why you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Safe travels. And please remember to tell your friends about the importance of proper diplomatic etiquette. The channel closed. Across 40 ships, 200,000 Xanthari personnel sat in stunned silence, contemplating the fact that their mighty fleet had just been neutralized by what looked like a flying junkyard. And in the depths of space, the Makeshift continued on its patrol, looking exactly as pathetic and harmless as it had when this all began. Which, as Captain Santos had tried to explain, was exactly the point. After all, the best weapon was the one nobody saw coming.